Cheers.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah, the first non-Sean Connery Eon Bond film. Connery's out and Lazenby's in.
I really like On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think the lazy assessment of this is it's great and Lazenby's dreadful. And I don't think that's quite fair. Lazenby isn't great and he's probably not even good. But I don't think it's the complete disaster that everybody says. And I think there are things in this movie that don't quite work that aren't Lazenby's fault. So it's not just the case that the movie's brilliant and Lazenby drags everything down. I don't think that's quite fair. On the whole, I would say this is one of the better Bonds. This is in the top. For me, it's in my favourite 5, definitely.
One thing that it's got is a tone completely unlike any of the others of that period, or many that followed either, that really makes it stand out and I think gives it an impact that a lot of them don't have. When I was growing up, even in the 90s, there was a feeling that this was a miss, that this was something that didn't hit the mark and Lazenby wasn't good. And in recent years, or the last 20 years, it feels like this is gaining in popularity and more people are not only saying that it's good, but some people are saying that it's the best one.
Yeah, a lot of people. I remember we got into an argument in a pub in central London with a man. Do you recall that? About 10 years ago?
Is this the one when we were doing the really loud Al Pacino impressions?
No, it was a completely different night. We were in the Angel near Charing Cross. And we were upstairs and completely unsolicited, a bloke came over to us and said, "What's the best Bond movie?" I don't think we'd been talking about Bond. And I remember saying, well, I'm not sure you can say what's the best one. I know my favourite is From Russia With Love. And he just went, "No, wrong, it's On Her Majesty's Secret Service." And I got into this argument, "Sorry, you're telling me my favourite is On Her Majesty's Secret Service?" And he said, "No, the best one is." I said, "Well, that's not what I told you." And we had this odd argument where we were arguing, and I was saying, "Look, I like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, it's great. What are we arguing about?" And it was some drunk prick.
Fancy meeting you, Fraulein.
It's a bit like when people compare Heath Ledger's Joker to Jack Nicholson's Joker, or any of the Jokers, and you go, "Oh, which one's better?" Well, they're very different films as well, and I actually think that On Her Majesty's Secret Service is a very different film, and Bond's a bit of a different character to Sean Connery's Bond. I can't see Sean Connery putting on a kilt. I can't see him playing Hillary and putting on a voice and going,
It could easily be that any one of you here is related to a royal house. If only we could go back far enough to find out.
it's very much, it sort of feels like this Lazenby Bond is a Bond of its own, with a bit of Connery touches thrown in there, but there's a lot of moments in it that feel probably one of the reasons why people look back on it almost as a joke in some ways. It's that he dresses a bit funny and he fell in love, the prick. It's sort of, it was a different Bond compared to the others around that period.
I want to do some brass rubbings there anyway.
Fine. Where do I go for this meeting?
Oh, they're being a bit canny about that. They want me to send a description of myself.
Tactfully adjusted to favour me.
Yes.
We've been playing the drinking game. I won't explain what the rules are because they're very long, but I'll put the rules down below. But it's what you expect from a James Bond drinking game. And it was a very light one, this one.
Relatively light. It was 103 drinks. The lightest one for a long time. It said it felt the lightest one since Dr. No, I think.
Two of the rules are you drink when someone says James and you drink when someone says Bond. And for a big portion of the film, he's undercover as Dr. Hilary Swank.
Sir Hilary Grey Baronet.
And during that whole period, no one's going to refer to him as 007, that's another drink. He's not killing anyone. So there are long chunks. It's not the best drinking game, but that doesn't matter.
Emile la banque, give la banque, give la banque, Emile la banque, give la banque.
The Bank of Emile.
Banque de Boue.
Banque de Boue.
It's gibberish.
The plot of this one is James Bond is on the search for Blofeld, and he stumbles across a suicidal woman and he saves her from committing suicide and gets in a fight on a beach. And he falls in love with her, and it just so happens that her father is one of the big criminals in the world. Second only to Spectre is his organisation. And he says, I want you to marry my daughter because she's an absolute mess and you're a violent criminal who I think can, not criminal, but you can kind of, you know, keep her in line. And Bond goes, I'll marry her and I'll look after her, but you need to tell me where Blofeld is. And so it becomes this thing where it's this romance as well as James Bond locating where Blofeld is for the first time, strangely. The bigger plot is when he eventually finds Blofeld. Blofeld is planning on... He's hypnotized a bunch of women who he's going to send around the world with a virus that's going to make people infertile. He wants to hold the world to ransom, and the price he wants is...
pardon for his various criminal past, his acts, criminal acts.
This is one of the ones that is closest to the books. You know, it really follows the book closely. That might be another reason why there aren't as many big moments throughout it, sort of silly, bombastic moments, because it's actually following a novel rather than just let's throw in a jetpack here and let's throw in a flying helicopter. Up
until now, I think we've said before, they do feel like they progressively get bigger and more sort of eccentric and arguably sillier with every film that goes on. And by the time you get to You Only Live Twice, you've got a hollowed out volcano and rockets eating satellites and all, and underground monorail and this sort of, and it gets fairly silly. I mean, enjoyably silly, but silly. So I don't want to say, to ground it in reality again, because it's got hypnotized, sexy models going around the world with a virus. But it does, there aren't any gadgets. There's not a big volcanic layer. A little bit more of a realistic movie with the caveat that, yes, there are some slightly silly things. You get the odd silly, like we said, odd Star Trek set. But it feels more down to earth.
You can't go that much bigger than You Only Live Twice at this point. At least, they could have tried, and what's great is they didn't. And they decide to have this change of tone, which I think having a new actor playing Bond is actually a good way to enable this as well, because people aren't expecting it. It's almost like a fresh start, sort of.
That's a good point, because I do think that when you watch the movies in order, whenever you get to a new Bond actor, you do get a sense of a freshness, I think. Obviously, Lazenby never outstayed his welcome, but for the people who've played it for prolonged periods of time, I think with them all, there's a bit of a sense that they've outstayed their welcome. And we're also, and obviously the new one has been delayed for a couple of years, so I guess we'll see what happens. I'm also getting a sense that Daniel Craig is sort of outstaying his welcome a little bit, so history's repeating itself.
He's also got a bit of the Connery towards the end of, You Only Live Twice, with the kind of him being bored in that, and Daniel Craig looking a little bored in the films, and then also saying he's fed up with it in interviews. And then retracting and going, no, of course I love being Bond. It's one of the greatest things in the world.
The most rewarding part was when they gave me my money.
Yes, November 64, the bullion job. You got away with quite a chunk of the haul.
Ben at least sounds hammered there. Got away with quite a chunk of the haul.
You got away with quite a chunk of the haul.
Getting serious and having a sort of slightly darker tone is something the series has done throughout to keep its longevity, to keep it going. And it's worked almost every time, because by You Only Live Twice, it's so big, it's so ridiculous, and we go darker and we go a little bit smaller scale. And the next time it goes serious properly, the big change is from Moonraker to For Your Eyes Only, and that is a huge, crazy change. And because they can't go bigger than Moonraker, and so they go pretty dark. For Your Eyes Only references on Her Majesty's Secret Service heavily, and I think is trying to get that tone back. And then what's interesting is Living Daylights is a little bit of Roger Moore type Bond is still seeping into Timothy Dalton's Bond movies. There's a little bit of campness, there's a little bit of silliness. And then there's a massive reset with his second film, where it's the most violent, and yet again, they reference this film.
Can I say something wrong?
He was married once, but it was a long time ago.
And then Die Another Day went so fucking far, and then Casino Royale brought it back and grounded it. So it is a thing that this franchise has done every 10 years or so, but just have this change of tone to make it still feel like it's different.
She managed to write that 8 very, very well, considering it was under the table and...
It would be smudged all over his other thigh and on his clothes. Like, ugh.
So one thing which is odd and sort of sticks out a bit here is that all the way through the movie there are these little moments where they're clearly desperately trying to tie it into the previous Bond movies and to remind you that this is a proper Bond movie. It's almost like they're saying, yes, we know we've got a new actor, a new man is playing Bond, but this is a Bond movie. This follows the Connery Bonds. This isn't something else. And these moments sort of stick out like a little bit of a sore thumb.
This never happened to the other fella.
It's an odd thing where it's sort of telling you that it's a Bond movie and we're saying this is Bond, but it's also oddly acknowledging that there was a different Bond. And then immediately following that, we can talk about the theme tune a bit later, I think, but the theme tune is fantastic. But the title sequence for this, I think, has got to be... It's up there with the worst of all the title sequences of any Bond. Basically clips from previous Bond movies. Remember Goldfinger? Remember Thunderball? It's villains and incidental characters from previous Bond movies.
Good shot.
As if to sort of, hey, this is Bond. Later on, there's a scene where Bond is he's in his office at MI6. He's got Honey Rider's belt and knife. And as he examines it, it has the Underneath the Mango Tree plays. He's got Red Grant's watch with the wire. He's got something from Thunderball.
I think the breather.
Why has he got these things?
Other people's things as well. Why has he got... It's Honey Rider going, where's my belt?
I hate that. I absolutely hate that. Like you said before, it feels like if not an entirely different character, it's at least a different take on the character and a different performance. So it's a much less self-assured Bond. It isn't the smooth, like the thing with, Sean Connery being Panther-like. It's a different guy who seems more fallible, seems like he has weaknesses, seems like he has, to me, a bit more of a character. He's a less confident Bond in himself, I think, through a lot of it. So he seems, in a way, to me, more interesting because he feels more like a real human. Because there is a little bit of a thing with the Connery Bond where it's kind of, there's a blasé attitude to it. And you know that he'll be okay. With Lazenby's Bond, there's a fragility to it, which makes it more interesting.
The thing that Lazenby does better than any of the early Bonds, and all the way up to Craig, in fight scenes, he looks like he's really in a fight and he's going to fucking knock your teeth out. And there's the way he throws a punch and the way he's in the fight, it looks like he's genuinely out to incapacitate the other person. George Lazenby, who was just, he was a model, he was up for the audition because they saw him in the Big Fry advert and went, oh, he looks like Bond.
Big Fry.
Here comes Big Fry with exotic Big Fry Turkish Delight, full of Big Fry Eastern promise. Big Fry Turkish Delight.
'Cause big fries are coming by. Big Fry.
And he purposefully got a haircut and got himself in a suit from Savile Row and made himself look as much like Bond as possible. turned up so he looked like Bond, and then in the audition, in a fight sort of like run through, he actually punched a guy in the face by accident, and they said, we like the look, we like the cut of his jib. And that's how he got it. And I think that sums him up quite well, that he's not very good, but he's good in fights and looks a bit like Bond.
Must have a bit of fresh air.
Get some fresh air. It's hardly stifling on the top of the mountain, is it? I think Lazenby's dealt a bit of a dodgy hand because, like, there's a whole bit in the middle where he's undercover as Hilary Swank, and it's not even him, it's the, you know, that other bloke. What is it, 40 minutes or something in the middle of it's like the meat of the movie, at least, in 40 minutes in the middle, where it's not even Lazenby speaking.
Fräulein, I should warn you, guns make me very nervous.
So all you've got is Lazenby there to look at. And unfortunately they do dress him like a prick. They give him the frilly thing you've got. He's got the kilt. He turns up in his flappy coat with his sort of his silly hat. He's got a pipe. And when he's not wearing that, he's wearing a like blue pajamas or a brown tracksuit. They really go out of their way to make this guy look like a chump.
Yeah, like Alan Partridge sportswear.
It is. It's complete Partridge. He looks an idiot and he sounds stupid because it's another man's voice. And none of this is Lazenby's fault.
Also, even when he's Hilary Swank, there's this whole scene where he bores a table of women. He seems so much weaker than Sean Connery's Bond, which is actually in the film's favour, but not in his favour.
Royal Beluga, north of the Caspian.
Yeah, kiss her with his fishy egg mouth.
One of them pops in her mouth.
Ooh, north of the Caspian Sea.
You said it to me while we were watching. Do you believe the relationship between Diana Rigg and George Lazenby? The truth of it is you don't really believe it, but it's an interesting story for Bond to go through, and Diana Rigg is great.
I don't quite buy it, mainly because there's clearly no chemistry between them. I want to buy it because I like the idea of Bond being romantically involved properly, and it adding this extra level of nuance to his character, and it making the movie seem all the more important, and obviously the ending, the denouement, seem more devastating.
There's the famous story where she ate garlic before they would kiss.
I think I had some chicken liver pate in the thing, which had garlic in it, which, silly me, I should have thought of, but I didn't. And I could have easily sprayed or whatever. Poor old George, I don't know what he's doing now, but he's definitely was the architect of his own demise as a film star.
You know, there's so many reports of him being difficult. You know, he thought he was a star.
He was really difficult.
And I don't know either of them, but I'm on Diana Rigg's side.
I love you.
She's filmed through butter.
Yes, you don't need to, she's gorgeous.
They need more butter on his shots.
You ready for me? Hang on, George, let me get the lard.
Yeah, no, Diana Rigg just like, okay, yes, okay. The scene in the barn where they have sex twice, when he says, I love you, I actually got an impact from it. Not because of their relationship, but the impact of, fucking hell, Bond said that. That, you know, the last movie, like, his main love interest dies 2/3 of the way through, and then he sleeps with another woman the next day and is completely forgotten about her. And he does that throughout the film. So there is this thing in it, in the movie, where you go, there is something impactful about the idea that he finally loved someone and he lost her.
She's the most interesting of all his love interests up to now, because you meet her walking into the sea to kill herself, and there's something pretty horrible about that. And then the next time you see her, it's in a casino, and she just sort of turns up and interrupts this game of baccarat and just sort of blithely bets a shitload of money and then loses and goes, well, I don't have it, I'm not going to pay. And he kind of bails her out. And then there's a moment where he sleeps with her, and then she just fucks off. She leaves him, and then he chases her for a bit, and she kind of goes, I don't care, I'm not interested. And it's the sort of thing where he's chasing a woman and he's being turned down, and he's got to chase her.
Chicken liver pate for lunch. Chicken liver pate for lunch.
Telly Savalas is my favourite Blofeld. I really love Telly Savalas in this. Donald Pleasance is, like, I will admit, he is kind of the quintessential Blofeld. The epitome of the Bond supervillain. The sort of cartoonish supervillain. He has a volcano lair. Telly Savalas' Blofeld is not that. He isn't a supervillain. He's he comes across as a genuinely dangerous criminal. Really nasty, intimidating, intelligent, but believable thug, a criminal, a really horrible criminal that you could imagine really exists. Donald Pleasance could fight Spider-Man. Telly Savalas' Blofeld is never going to fight Spider-Man, but he might shoot you in the back in an alley. And that's, to me, I love it. I love the idea of this sort of genuinely aggressive, dangerous looking. Telly Savalas just kind of radiates danger to me.
Donald Pleasance, I have more. Maybe it's also because of like the links that I have to other films of his that I loved, like Halloween and Wake in Fright or Escape from New York. And Terry Savalas, you know, I think of Kojak, which is a program I never watched, and his video where he talks about how you should go to Birmingham.
This is the view that nearly took my breath away. It was an over 40s competition and incredible. Yes, it's my kind of town. So long, Birmingham. Here's looking at you.
We got a new director, and it's Peter Hunt, who was the editor of the previous Bond films and second unit director. And I think he does a really good job, although some of the editing choices in this film are the worst in the franchise. Well, there's also some odd ADR choices. There's the guns make me nervous.
Guns make me nervous.
But anyway, I think he does a good job, Peter Hunt. John Barry's score throughout is him firing on all cylinders.
The theme for this is so good that it means that they can withhold the main Bond theme basically until the very end, and you don't miss it. At no point are you going, well, I'm let down by this music, where's the Bond theme? You forget that there's this extra brilliant theme waiting, because the one you've got right now is so good that you don't need the Bond theme.
The cinematography in the Alps is so good. There are countless shots in this movie where if it was just set in the Alps, there's moments where it feels like a David Lean movie set in the Alps. It looks beautiful. I still think in almost all the Bond films, I don't need to cut to the green screen studio shots. They take me out of it slightly because the stunts are so good. I believe that's Bond.
Yeah, I don't need to see George Lazenby. I don't need Telly Savalas on a green screen. Just put a fat cunt on skis.
I think you meant fat count.
Yes, very good.
Director, or count, as I think I can now safely say.
Yes, count the blowjob.
Cunt the blowjob.
The stunt work, I mean, the great stuff where he's on one ski, there's people crashing into trees.
I've fought Lazenby's corner for most of this video, but there are moments when he just isn't great. And the thing that stands out, the one moment that stands out, I think, above any other in this movie is...
Of guns.
Lazenby says the line like he's not aware that it's supposed to be a joke. He says it like it's just a statement of fact. he had a lot of guts. As in, he had a lot of internal organs, and now they're outside of his skin. That's positively shocking. No more foreplay.
You three keep going.
God, imagine if you were the three that stayed behind, what you'd say in the cafeteria that night. Like, he told like James and Cliff and Ryan to go off, and they just started an avalanche.
And Paul, he just got churned up by the snow thing. Honestly, it's like it was everywhere. It was horrible. I've never seen anything as bad as that. I don't know why we're trying to kill this genealogist. What has he done?
He's undercover as Hilary Swank, and he meets all these women who are at this allergy farm at the top of a mountain.
Well, it's the front for Blofeld's world domination thing, but they believe it's a sort of hypnosis centre for getting over their allergies.
But then Terry Savalas's tape is like, "You're not scared of chickens. Go to Birmingham."
Cassette number 7.
Birmingham's road systems are revolutionary. The Inner Ring Road, Queensway, a 4-mile circuit of dual carriageways, tunnels and overpasses, linking up with the main arteries of the city and the Aston Expressway.
Yeah, it's not quite sure. You're not quite sure if it's allergies or phobias, because she says about she's from a chicken farm and she can't eat the chickens. It's like, you don't have to eat them to farm them, surely.
Now all I do is eat chicken. What a terrible diet.
She has a plate of chicken, and that's not the most offensive thing on the table at that dinner. Ruby Bartlett, who has the phobia stroke allergy to chicken.
It sounds like an episode of Maury Povich.
With their worst nightmare, a 6-foot-tall chicken.
Very weird for me is that for some reason they specifically say that she's from Morecambe.
From Lancashire. Morecambe Bay, actually.
It's strange for me because my family are from Morecambe.
You were a lifeguard at Morecambe.
I was a lifeguard in Morecambe Bay, exactly where she's from. I gotta say, she doesn't sound like anyone from Morecambe that I can recall. It's like saying, yes, alright, nice to meet you, I'm actually from Melbourne.
The climax, which is a bunch of gangsters in helicopters attacking a base on top of a mountain. It's really exciting, and I think it's really well done.
The image of the helicopters with the sort of the mountains, the backdrop, it's sort of pre-apocalypse now, doing a very, very similar thing. Visually, it's really breathtaking.
And then we get the one thing which is, I think, not that badly executed, but is ridiculous, is the bobsleigh chase.
As an action scene, it's I think pretty well done, but it feels very silly. It feels very tacked on, very surplus.
And the thing that I think saves it is when that big dog arrives at the end.
Oh wow! Look at this guy. And it's brought booze.
It's Blofeld. Blofeld.
I think the ending is the reason why a lot of people say this is the best Bond, because it does have the best ending of any Bond film. The beginning of the film is her walking into the sea and him stopping her from killing herself. And the end of the film is him failing at stopping her death, but she now wants to live and his life has caught up with her.
And it is a shame that they never did anything with it. It was basically brushed under the rug because it's one of the great moments in the whole of the Bond series.
When he finally gets his revenge on Blofeld, it's a joke. Mr. Bond!
Mr. Bond!
I've defended him through large parts of this video, and I don't think he's awful, but he isn't great. And the idea that he sort of thought that he was kind of above Bond and could walk away from this role of a lifetime and go on to bigger and better things. I mean, he was proven to be wrong, because he made The Man from Hong Kong.
Poor old George, I don't know what he's doing now, but he's definitely was the architect of his own demise as a film star.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service, I really like it. It has some pretty obvious flaws. Probably chief among them is its leading man. But I don't think he is quite the car crash that a lot of people think he is. Plus, there are nuances to the character here that you've never seen before. And stuff that you never see again, really. I think this makes this a unique Bond film. And a really, really good one. I think it's one of the best.
Chicken liver patty for lunch.